I adjusted the dimension of the wall on the computer monitor in front of me. I glanced up at the TV screen when I heard the news anchor talking about a murder committed in nearby Ocala. The first thing I saw was a long view showing Sally, my wife, and David, my best friend, stepping from a motel door in the background. She had left work early to do some shopping, and he was supposed to be in Gainesville checking on a job site. I was stunned. What the heck was this? All sorts of possibilities entered my head. I knew I couldn't accuse them of anything without solid proof. This was a total surprise to me. My wife and I had been married for 14 years, and Dave and his wife had been close friends for 10 years. Dave, Sally, and I were in business together. We had started an architectural service together. We worked closely together, and David Forrester and his wife Mary were our best friends after hours. We saw each other socially several times a month. I have a degree in architecture and do the designs. Sally runs the business end of the firm, while Dave works mostly in the field, checking that things are being done correctly according to my plans. We did well until 4 years ago. I won a prestigious award for the design of a city hall for a local city. Suddenly, we had inquiries from all over. We had quadrupled the size of our staff, and I now had 12 other architects working for me. We had just moved into a new building we had built for ourselves. The building was 7 stories tall, and our offices took up the whole top floor. The most of the rest of the building was rented, and the rents paid the mortgage with a nice profit left over. We had each put up money in the beginning. I had invested 50%, Sally 25%, and Dave put up the balance. I had about 20 major designs in progress at that time and worked long, long hours. I was way ahead of schedule and was planning to slow down soon. That afternoon's surprise had me very confused. I didn't know what to think. I knew the passion between Sally and I had waned a bit during the last several years, because of the long hours I was putting in. I would have bet everything I owned that Sally loved me dearly and was true to me. Our love life was sporadic, but I thought it was adequate. I thought about what I had seen. George Shelton, my old college buddy, was the assistant manager of the TV station. I had my secretary get him on the phone for me. He owed me some big-time favors from years before. I asked if he could get me a DVD of the new show from that afternoon. He said that was a small thing, and he would have it delivered to my office within an hour. I called Sally at 4, as was my habit, no matter where we were, if we were apart. She seemed to be happy to hear from me and told me she had bought a nice flank steak and had called Mary and invited she and Dave for dinner, so I would need to get home in time to get the grill going. She said she was planning dinner for 630 or 7. It wasn't a few minutes later that my intercom buzzed, and the receptionist informed me that she had a small package addressed to Mr. John Nelson. Shortly, the DVD was delivered to my office. I put it on, and after viewing it 3 times, I was convinced I had seen what I thought I saw. What I hadn't seen before was that prior to my attention being drawn to the program, there was a shot of Dave and Sally kissing inside the door to room 116. They were in plain view behind the reporter, describing the area where the murder had occurred. Several hours prior to that, another shot showed the name of the motel, although I recognized it anyway. I had designed the remodel several years ago. I knew Tom Noble, the owner of the Nobility Motel, and I called him, and we talked about all the excitement there. I asked if he had surveillance video of that area near room 115 to 118. He said that the police had taken copies of the video of that area of the motel and were very happy with the quality of the pictures. I asked if he knew Dave, and he said they had talked on the phone but had never met in person. I told him I was interested looking at those shots. He said we could view them any time I wanted to see them. He would leave instructions to the desk clerks to give me access to anything I wanted to see. I asked if I could view them in about 15 minutes, and he said, "Hey John, that is no problem. The DVDs from this afternoon are in the player now." I closed down my big computer that I used with my CD programs. I told my secretary that I was going home a bit early, and for her to notify security when the last person left our offices. I watched the surveillance video and saw both of their cars park in front of 116. Dave arrived first, got the key from the office, then entered the room. Sally arrived a few minutes later and went right in the door. There was other traffic up and down the walk. Then a man with a gun appeared, running past 116 and down around the corner of the building. Then police and plainclothes officers were hurrying by, carrying drawn weapons. Then all was quiet for a while. Then I saw the TV crew set up, and the reporter was visible talking while Sally and Dave kissed in the door and left. I had the clerk make me a copy. I ran the video to the section where Sally and Dave arrived and asked the clerk if he knew them. Why, yes, I sure do. They spend at least one day or night here every week. They check in about noon and are gone in the morning. That is Mr. and Mrs. Anderson. They have been doing that for as long as I have been here, and that's 2 years next month. Nice folks. I thanked him and took the copy of the DVD and headed home. I had to decide how to play this. I could see no advantage to letting the two cheaters know I was onto them. I would have to keep cool until I had everything figured out. I was formulating a plan. It was rough as yet, and I needed time. I thought about my loving wife. She was a year younger than I and was just turning 35 and looked 2 years younger. She worked out 1 or 2 afternoons a week. Now I had a good idea of what exercises she was doing. How could I be so stupid? Were they cheating me in other ways, like stealing money from the business? I needed a secret audit of the books somehow. Sally handled that part of the business, and I had always totally trusted her. I would have to get she and Dave out of town or something and set up a forensic audit while they were away. Then it hit me. Sally and I were supposed to go to the Southeastern Architects Association meeting for 3 days the end of next week. We would take Dave and Mary with us. We had even discussed the possibility of doing that a few weeks ago. I had to find someone I trusted. Marge, my regular secretary, was going on maternity leave for a month on Monday. I usually isolated myself from most of the other employees and stuck to my own work area with my assistants. Then I thought of the new girl, who had been working for several days getting checked out by March. March was getting her ready to take over for her while she was gone on maternity leave. I had noticed that her work was excellent. She was very young and was a very pretty little girl. Marge told me she was extremely intelligent, a single mother with a 2.5-year-old daughter, and was taking college courses on several nights a week. Her name was Debbie Summers. The few letters and notes I had dictated to her were perfect when she brought them to me. She had even asked me the first time I met her if she could talk to me for a few minutes. She had wanted to know if there was any chance of getting the company to start a childcare room in the building for people like her. She said she thought many of the workers would be much more comfortable having their children close by. Debbie presented her case very calmly and intelligently, explaining the advantages to the companies in the building. She had the names of the workers from all the companies who wanted such a facility. She had the estimated cost for staffing, attendance, and even included the rent of the only available space. This little girl had her act together. I was impressed. I told her to work on her idea some more, and had talked the idea over with Sally and Dave. They both thought it was a good idea. Sally was going to meet with all the tenants and sound them out about splitting the cost of the project. I hadn't heard back from Sally as yet. I needed to talk some with Debbie. I would have plenty of opportunity for the next month when she would be in and out of my private office every day. I thought about Sally. What had happened to us? I could still not believe this woman was only pretending when she was such a passionate lover. She was always happy. She would come in my office several times a day and kiss me lovingly and tell me she loved me. No one was that good an actor, were they? And Dave. He talked about how much he loved his Mary. I couldn't believe he was lying. Nobody was that good, that sincere and that demonstrative in their love and still be cheating. I was going to have to be that good tonight, or one of them would pick up on it. Could I fool all of them? I needed a cover story to hide behind. Maybe a headache would help. How about a cold or something? No, a headache is best. Don't mention it unless someone makes a remark. Then go take some aspirin. The dinner that evening went well. It was no different than many other we had shared together. I played the gracious host and loving husband role perfectly. I was seething inside. There were 2 near misses when I thought things might explode. First, Mary asked if anyone had heard about the murder at the Nobility Motel in town. I noticed Sally flinch. Dave was cool as a cucumber and asked if that was the same place. We had done some work for in the past. I said it was. I watched Mary. She was serene and calm. I had an idea that she knew that they were lovers and that she was sticking in a needle. Later, after dinner, we were all helping clean up. Sally was washing some things and Dave was drying. Mary was carrying dishes in from the patio where we had eaten, and I was right behind her with some pots and pans. Sally and Dave were softly talking as we entered. Mary said, "Hey, what are you two scheming about? Where to meet after John and I are asleep in our beds?" They jumped in. Sally laughed. "Heck yes. It's the only way we get any lovin'. You stick in the mud. Won't give us any. I keep asking old Dave, but he is afraid Mary would catch us and throw him out on his ear." Everyone had a good laugh. Mary snorted. "Heck, don't worry about that. At least I would know he wouldn't be bringing home some strange disease." Sally giggled. "Right. There is no way I would ever catch anything from John." She hugged and kissed me. Darn, she was good. I grinned and laughed along with everyone else. After Mary and Dave left, I looked at Sally. "What's going on? Is there something I should know?" She looked at me with her beautiful brown eyes. "What do you mean?" "I really don't know. It was just a feeling I got. Like everyone knows something I don't know. Is it just me? I don't know. All I know is that I love only you. You are my life, my reason for living. I am ready to try for a baby. I only have a few more years left before it will be too late. The only baby I will ever have is yours, my sweet love. Only yours. Now go lock up and I'll get the lights and meet you upstairs, okay?" I stood and tried to figure out what to do. I thought about it for a while. I was sure I was right, yet I also believed she was telling the truth when she said she loved me. I shrugged and went on up the stairs. I walked slowly into our bedroom and saw her on our bed. Her eyes were closed. I shrugged and undressed, then went in the bathroom, showered and washed my teeth. Her eyes were open when I returned. She smiled and spread her arms, saying, "Come to me, my sweet love. I need your love so I can sleep. I need you to make me feel content and loved." Her body was magnificent. She was irresistible. I needed her as much as she said she needed me. I stood and walked to the bathroom. I was sick on my stomach. I struggled to keep from throwing up my dinner. I quickly knelt by the toilet bowl. Up came dinner. Sally was beside me, holding my head. I pulled away and washed my face in cold water. I couldn't look at her. I went to my dressing area and pulled on some jeans, a t-shirt, and some sneakers. I got my keys and billfold from my slacks. Sally kept asking me what was wrong. When I looked at her, I started crying and ran from the house. I drove away, not knowing where I was going. I just drove. It was only about 10 o'clock, and I saw a little cafe I knew, and pulled in so I could get a coffee and think about what I was going to do. My cell phone was ringing. I looked at it. Sally. I turned it off, and when in the cafe, it was almost empty. I sat in a booth. A waiter approached, and I ordered coffee. I sat sipping my hot coffee, and wondered how I had let my marriage get away from me. Why had I not seen some signs? My head was in my hand, and my eyes were closed. As I tried to make sense of this mess my life had become, I heard a soft, sweet voice say, "Hey, sailor, things can't possibly be that bad." I looked up. There was Debbie from my office. I shook my head. No, they're really much worse. My life has just gone in the garbage can. She was looking very concerned. She took my hand in her small one and said, "Boss, I am a very good listener. I am on my way home from night school, and I have some time to spare. Do you want to tell me all about it?" I looked at her. I sighed. "Girl, my problems are too nasty for your innocent little years. I don't think there is a thing you can tell me that I haven't heard before. My dad was a street cop, and he told us everything that happened at work. He worked the worst areas in the town. My sister is a love addict with a drinking problem. Her husband is a druggie. I have heard or seen it all." I stared at her. "Girl, please forgive me. I guess my problems are only that bad to me. I just don't know what to do. Boss? Mr. John, just tell me about it. Maybe just getting it off your chest will clarify things for you." "Okay, girl, you asked for it. I just found out my wife has been cheating on me with my partner and best friend. They are not aware that I know. My wife had her lover and his wife over for dinner tonight. It was hard to stay calm, but I have no hard proof yet. I believe they had love this afternoon after dinner. She wanted to have love with me. I lost it and ran and threw up. Then I ran from the house. So there you have it. A sad story. What gets me is that she says she loves me very often, and I believe her. I know it can't be true, though. She's still my hand, and her little hands. She said you were talking about Miss Sally and Mr. Dave, right?" "Yes. Your wife is one of the most beautiful and classy women I have ever seen. She always looks perfect. I don't like Mr. Dave. He always looks like he is undressing me with his eyes. He has never said anything, though. I think your wife may have a similar problem to my sister's problem. She loved her husband dearly, but she cheated on him almost every day. She couldn't help herself. She would go with any man that asked her. And if a man didn't ask her, she would ask him what happened to her. Her husband divorced her, and she got worse. She is dying of AIDS now. Her kids are with their father. Oh God, I still love her. The two kinds of people I hate the most are cheaters and liars. How can I ever trust her again? How can I live with her again? What can I do? Mr. John, I believe people can change. Maybe with counseling for both of you, this can be resolved. I looked at this sweet young woman. Honey, do you really believe that? Mr. John, there are too many unknowns in this case for me to hazard a guess. Does she love him too? How did it start? Does she want it to end? Who does she love the most? How long have they been doing this? Why hasn't she quit? Lots of stuff to try and find out. I would guess that the quicker you can get this information, the easier it will be for you. Is there a pattern to when they get together? How do they communicate? I would like to suggest that you request a detailed summary of all her cell phone calls for the last few months. This young girl was pretty shocked clever. I decided to trust her. She already knew everything. I told her I would pay her to help me gather some of the information I need. She laughed. I will help you. I don't want your money. I don't help friends for money. Okay, friend. Then call me John, except at work. We need to seem normal at work. I think I would like you to find an investigator and a forensic accountant for me. We are all supposed to all go to a meeting in Atlanta on Friday and return on Monday. Money is no object. I will give you a company credit card so you can pay for everything. I think they meet on Tuesdays or Fridays when she is supposed to be at the gym. I'll give you the name of the gym. I know where they meet. I even know what room they use. The owner of the motel is one of my clients. I think hidden cameras would be in order. So, Miss Summers, does that give you enough to get started with? She smiled. The name is Debbie John. I may need to get you to pay for a babysitter so I can get some of this done. Put it on the card. You can get up to $300 in cash from any ATM or for a charge anywhere. It has a total amount of $10,000. I'll give you the PIN when I give you the card. I put my other hand over hers. I assure you, I will not forget what you were doing for me. You make a darn fine friend. I take good care of my friends. I always have. I am really ashamed to say that I don't really know many of the people who work for the company and who their allegiance may be with. I don't exactly know why, but I trust you completely. Mr. John, I appreciate that. I felt this as a load was lifted from my chest. I leaned back in the booth and looked at this woman or child. What an interesting person she was. I grinned at her. I have been thinking about this, and I guess this problem with my wife has to be my fault. I have somehow not been providing my wife with the attention she needs or something. I can't see that. The usual thing about the hubby being too tied up with business could apply, because she spends almost as much time on it as I do. I need more information to see if it is something that can be fixed. I smiled, Debbie. You were right. You are a good listener and wise beyond your years. Tell me a little about yourself. Well, Mr. John, as I told you, my father was a cop. He was shot by a man. He stopped to tell that his gas cap on his car was loose and was hanging by a plastic cord. That only lasted a few hours. Mom and I were holding his hands when he passed away. We moved in with my uncle, William Denton. He has a huge house and has never married. That was when I was 15. We were happy there. Uncle William was very strict with Nancy, my sister, and I. She was 2 years older and just did whatever she wanted to do, no matter what he said. He finally gave her a choice: obey him or get out. She disappeared the next day. He put out a missing child report on her, and the cops brought her home a couple of days later. She was gone again in 2 days. It was over a year before we saw her again. She knocked on the door one night with a husband and a baby. Uncle William took them in, and they stayed for several years in Uncle Bill's guest cottage out back. Meanwhile, I graduated from high school. I was the valedictorian and first in my class. I got a job that summer in a department store and was promoted after a few months to assistant manager of the ladies' shoe department. 2 months later, the manager left because her husband was transferred, and I was made the acting manager until a replacement was found. They never replaced me and finally made me the manager when I turned 18. I did a good job for them, and everyone was proud of me. Then, at an office Christmas party, I was slipped a date assault drug and was assaulted. I didn't know who, or for that matter, how many had done it, but when I found out I was pregnant, I was fired. To make a long story short, my uncle wanted me to abort the baby, but I couldn't do that, so I left home. I had my sweet baby girl, and I love her so much. I can't believe it. I had saved most of what I made at the department store and had a fair sum in savings. I moved in with a more mature woman with a young baby and cared for her baby while she worked. I stayed with her until her husband returned from the army. By then, Dolly was born, and I found the little efficiency apartment we are in now. There is a daycare, a block away where I leave her when I work. I am lucky that a nice lady in the apartment next door will watch Dolly when I go to classes, like tonight. That's about it. I looked at her and patted her small, warm hand that was still in mine. Debbie, if you ever need anything at all, just let me know. What are you studying in college? I am studying business administration for now. I haven't decided what I want to do. The tuition is rough for me, and my savings are running low. I'll make it, though, now that I have a good job. I grinned and said in my best imitation of an old man, Sweetie, I have a proposition for you. Her eyebrows rose and she stared at me. Oh, don't be silly, Debbie. I am just kidding. The proposition is this. I'll pay your expenses for the rest of your college. You will sign a contract to work for me until you graduate, and for 5 years after you graduate. The pay while you finish your education will be determined by your grades. What grading system do they use? 0 to 4.0. Okay. What is your GPA now? I run about 3.5 right now, but I have little time to study, right? If you could afford childcare, would that help? Childcare while I am working is what keeps me broke. The only time I have to study is when she takes a nap, or after she goes to bed at night, on the weekends, or when I don't have a class and housework cuts into that. Listen, girl, I am 99% sure we are going to go with your suggestion on the child care. I'm going to give you a small raise when you finish your first 90 days with the company. Starting right now, you will get a 20% raise. For every 1/10 of a point, your GPA goes up. A GPA of 4.0 will double your pay. Wow. Talk about your incentive plans. I love it. I won't disappoint you, Mr. John. I promise. Hey, if you call me Mr. again while we are not at work, the deal is off. Got it. Yes, John. I understand. Fine. I had better let you get home now. Oh dear. I need to hurry. Good night. She smiled. Then she sobered and looked at me. A tear ran down her cheek. She leaned over and kissed my cheek, then ran out the door. I finished my coffee, and as I got up, I saw her check and looked at it. She had had a coffee and a grilled cheese sandwich for $2.50. I paid both checks. The next morning, I heard heels clicking down the hall to my private office and looked up to see Debbie paused at the open door. Good morning, boss. Her smile brightened the day for me. She was delightfully pretty and cheerful. Good morning to you too, Debbie. Come on in. She walked to my desk and carefully placed 3 $1 bills on my desk and grinned at me. I left early this morning and stopped by the cafe on the way to work to pay the check. I forgot to pay last night. They said there were no unpaid checks last night. You must have paid mine. I laughed. Yeah, I got your check too. This is too much. It was only $2.50. You paid a tip too, didn't you? I nodded. Yeah, I guess I did. I handed her an envelope and said, Here is the credit card. The PIN is written inside the flap on the envelope. I want you to get started on the special projects we discussed yesterday. I'll tell Marge you were working on the childcare project so you can take whatever time you need. Is that okay with you? She smiled again as she took the envelope. Yes, sir. Mr. John, I will report my progress later if I am finished before the end of work. I had to smile at her. If you take the whole day, you can get some comparative information on the daycare. Do you stop at the cafe every evening about the same time? Usually that is usually my dinner. It's often all I have time for. If I don't see you this afternoon, I'll try to meet you tonight. Then she was back in the office by noon and handed me an envelope. She smiled. Here are the estimates for everything you requested. Let me know if they are satisfactory on the audit. I will have to have an answer by tomorrow evening to get it all set up for this weekend. I guess I will have to be here with them. Can I bring Dolly with me on the surveillance project? I have it all set up. I need to call them with the information listed in the envelope. Should I stop back in an hour? I told her that I would have the answers for her then. I just couldn't help smiling back at her. I buzzed Sally's intercom. She answered right away. Hi, honey. What's going on? Oh, not much. I guess you didn't go out for lunch today. No, dear. I am too busy today, and I have a workout scheduled for tomorrow at noon. I have to get the payroll ready early because we are leaving out early Friday for Hotlanta. Giggle. Do you have everything coordinated with Dave and Mary? Yes. Are you feeling better this morning? You acted so weird last night. I don't understand what is going on with you. Don't worry about it. I feel much better today. Oh, that girl. What's her name? You know, the one with the daycare plan. That's Debbie, honey. Yeah, Debbie. She dropped off some figures she got from other companies that provide daycare. She is a sharp little cookie. Yes, she is. She is as cute as a fat little bug, too. Do I have to keep an eye on her with you? Why? You have never worried about that sort of thing before. Besides, I am way too old for her. She looks like a teeny bopper. However, if I was 20 years younger, you might have to worry. She sure is pretty smart, too. Well, she is old enough to have a baby. I guess she hasn't lost weight after her pregnancy. She showed me a picture of her daughter. Now there is a real cutie that made me jealous as heck. I want one too. We'll see. I need to get to work on the Baker project. I want that ready to send out Friday too. I may have to work late tonight to get caught up. I'll let you know later. Debbie picked up the information and left work early to give it to the investigators. Later that afternoon, Dave stopped by my office. I asked if he was ready to go to Atlanta for the weekend. He said he was. He said, Sally said you were sick last night. You're doing all right today. Yeah. David or Buddy? It must have been someone I ate. I grinned at him. Yes, like you could ever cheat on Sally. She would kill you if she caught you. Maybe. I grinned and laughed. How about if I caught her? I thought he flinched. He grinned. Fat chance. The girl loves you. She would never cheat on you. I looked at him carefully. You may be right about that. I have heard that if the conditions are right, any woman may or may not cheat. She has a big gang of admirers. I agree with you on the guys lusting after her. She belongs to you, though. Yeah. The conference went well, and we enjoyed ourselves. I managed to call Debbie every day, and she reported Sunday morning that she had all the information I wanted. She would have it on my desk Monday morning. I was as nervous as a cat in a room full of rocking chairs. I was very uneasy the whole time we were there. Luckily, we were unending activities day and night. We were exhausted at night when we went to bed. Sally didn't seem too disappointed when we went right to sheep. One night it was a show that lasted until midnight. The next night we did it land underground. We staggered into our suite at 2 a.m. There was a breakfast buffet meeting and we were through. We got on I-75 and headed south. We each drove for an hour and a half, and we were home about 6 that evening, while Mary and I were in the back seat, and Sally and David thought we were both asleep. I noticed that when Sally drove, she was constantly pushing his hands away from her. Then she looked back at us. I was watching from under the bill of my ball cap. I don't think she could see my eyes. I saw her motion to Dave, and as he turned around to check on us, I closed my eyes for a few moments. When I opened then, he was sitting closer to Sally. She moaned softly several times, so I guessed he was pleasing her. I groaned and sat up. "Where are we now?" I asked. They both jumped. Sally said, "Go back to sleep. We just entered Florida, and we are looking for somewhere to stop and have a pit stop while Dave takes over." I knew my marriage was over. Sally and I hardly spoke on the drive from Dave and Mary's place to our house. We did go through the drive-thru at the local hamburger emporium. When we were home, we unloaded 8-hour burgers and crawled in bed. She snuggled up to me and was gently snoring in a few minutes. I struggled to get to sleep for an hour or so. No luck. I got up and called Debbie's cell phone. She answered and sounded wide awake. I asked how things had gone. Smooth as clockwork. She replied, "Things are pretty dull around here with you gone. I suspect things will go crazy tomorrow, though." "That bad, hun?" "I think so. Can you just put everything in the center drawer of my desk?" "It will be there. Thanks. Good night. Good night. I am glad you are back. Me too. Monday morning was typical. I left for work well before Sally was up. David would arrive there 10 minutes after I did. I thought about it. There was no way he could stop by and do Sally and not be much later. Sally is not a quickie-type person in her love. I read the report from Atkinson and Jenkins accountants. Everything was fine except that one person was abusing his expense accounts. It was Dave. It was only a matter of a couple $100s a month. I didn't care if no one noticed it. It did set a bad example for the employees, though. Everything brightened when I heard the heels clicking down the hall. Debbie stuck her head around the corner of my door. She was early. She smiled, and things were suddenly way better. "Hello, boss. How are you today?" "I don't know yet. I haven't got to the investigator's report yet. Did you read it?" She looked away from me, then looked back and nodded. "That bad? Deb?" She nodded again. I saw a tear course down her cheek. I sat down and removed the brown envelope from the center drawer. I removed the report and read it quickly. What I had suspected was true. There was massive evidence. I picked up the DVD and inserted it. A title said the day, date, and time. The scene was from Tuesday. Boy, the investigators were fast. The first thing I saw was Sally enter the motel room and kiss Dave. They kissed for a long time. They parted and started undressing. Sally was spectacular as usual. I watched him screw her. I watched until I thought I might get sick. I fast-forwarded to the next scene. The next scene was from Thursday at 12:16. Same room. Dave was waiting for her. Sally entered and said, "Dave, this is the end. I think we got too careless. I think they both suspect something. We can never do it again." The quality of the video wasn't going to win any awards, but it was clearly adequate. Dave pulled back. "I think you were right. It has been a wonderful 5 years. Do you think we can get in one last love? Heck no. I am going to the gym. Watch yourself this coming weekend. Don't screw it up now. I can't lose my John. That would kill me. Yeah, I am the same way about Mary. I really do love her." They kissed again, and both left the room. Dave dropped the room key on the table by the door and left. I looked at Debbie with tears running down my cheeks. She shut the door and hurried to me. She said, "John, are you all right? They are both supposed to meet you here in 20 minutes. Do you want me to delay it a while?" "No. Give me a minute to wash my face, and I will be all right." "When do you expect Mrs. Forrester to be here?" 5 or 10 minutes after Miss Sally and Mr. Force to arrive." "Can you stall that long? Buzz me when she is here, then escort her in here, and you stay here too. It won't hurt to have a witness. You have control of the hidden cameras in here, don't you?" "Yes. The control is on my desk." "Good. Turn it on when the first person enters this room. And the quicker you can get Mrs. Forrester in after they are inside, the better it will be for me." "Okay. Yes, Mr. Nelson, you are going to do just fine. I guess you noticed the boxes of tissues I put out around the room." She looked up at the clock. "Yes, I have to get out at my desk." She opened the door. She looked outside. Then she turned and looked at me. She blew me a kiss. "Be strong, boss." The door closed behind her. 2 minutes later, the buzzer went off, and I watched the door open, and Dave held the door for Sally. I pretended to be talking to someone on the phone. I motioned for them to sit down. I said, "Right, George, that is just what I have in mind. I will call you back if there is any change. I just want to get it over with as fast as possible." "Right. I'll let you know how it goes. Bye." The buzzer went off again. I heard Debbie say, "Mrs. Forrester is here. Show her in." The door opened, and Mary and Debbie entered and sat down. I smiled at Mary. I said, "Mary, the first thought you should be here too, because what is going on here today affects you too." Sally and Dave looked at each other. They were not smiling. I looked around the room. "I think you all have met Miss Summers. She is my temporary secretary while Marge is having her baby. She is here to take notes to get started. I would like all of you to watch the TV monitor over there." I clicked the button on my desk, and the TV showed the scene when Sally joined Dave in the motel. They stared silently at the screen. Then Sally stood and screamed, "No! Oh no!" and she crumbled to a heap on the floor. Dave looked at me. "You son of a jerk," Mary said. "You are the son of a jerk, David. Shut up. I want to hear this." After a few minutes of love, I stopped the show. I think we have seen enough of that garbage. I want Mary to see another segment. I rolled ahead to the scene when they decided they had to stop cheating on Mary and I after 5 years. Sally was still sobbing on the floor. I said loudly, "Stop it, Sally. It is too late for that. You need to listen to what I have to say. It is about your future." She looked up at me. I wanted to run and comfort her. I heard a voice in my head say, "Be strong, boss." I looked around the room, then shut off the DVD. After the two lovers declared their love for their spouses, I said, "Sally, look at me." Her head slowly lifted. "Sally, I will love you forever. However, I can never live with or trust you again. You will be served with divorce papers as you leave this office." I looked at Mary. "Mary, honey, I hated to spring this on you this way, but I think you had an idea this was going on, didn't you?" "Yes, I was sure it was. I smelled Sally's perfume on Dave all the time. Some of his stories didn't add up. I forgive you, John. I, too, have a lawyer lined up for this contingency." I looked at Sally, then at Dave. "Well, that part is out of the way. Now, for the matter of our business together. I feel that cheating on your spouse is tantamount to stealing. In our wedding vows, we vow to forsake all others and pledge that our bodies belong to the person we are marrying. If you give your body or any part of it to someone else, you are stealing from your spouse. You are a thief. You cannot be trusted. Business partnerships are a lot like marriages. They are based on trust. I do not trust either of you anymore. I propose that I buy the two of you out. I am not sure I have the cash available at this time to do that. So I propose that I run the business until I have the cash ready. The other option is to sell the business and share the profits according to your shares. I propose a 10-day waiting period to give each of us a chance to examine his or her options." I looked at each of them. "Does anyone want to say anything?" Mary said yes. "The money David invested in this company belongs to me. I would like to remain your silent partner. David is fired as of now. He no longer has a home either." She glared at Dave and sat down. I smiled at Mary. "Honey, that makes it easier on me. I'll have papers drawn up to that effect." I saw Sally raise her hand. I nodded to her. She looked sorrowfully at me. "John let me retain my share too. I will also be a silent partner. Just send me my share of the dividends when you pay Mary hers. Mary, please forgive me. I never meant for this to happen. It is all because I am a weak woman. I threw away the best man in the world. I have nothing left to live for. Nothing. My life is over. I was stupid. So darn stupid. I said, Sally, you can have the house. I could never live there. I will get my stuff out as soon as I find a place to live. I'll call and leave a message." Sally walked out the door. I heard a voice say, "Mrs. Sally Nelson." "Yes, ma'am." "You were served." I heard her heels clicked slowly down the hall. I walked over to the window and stared at nothing. My eyes were filled with tears. I thought the hurt I felt was the worst of this whole week. After a few minutes, I felt a pressure trying to turn me from the window. I turned and saw Debbie pulling on my arm. She looked very concerned. "Mr. John, are you all right?" She gently dabbed at my eyes with a tissue. I smiled and thanked her. I said, "It is hard to slam a door shut on 14 years of what I thought was a perfect marriage. I have to start a new life now. At least I am going to keep the business. I was afraid I would lose it." She smiled. "I am so happy for both of us about that. Now I can hold you to your promise." "Oh no. I would have kept my promise to you somehow. I am okay now. How are you coming on the daycare project?" Debbie smiled, and the cloud over my head disappeared. "I have all the figures finalized. I even have a retired RN who would love to run it for us. She says she knows other aunts that would love to work here, either part-time or full-time. I would like to bring her in. I guess you would have to interview her." I looked at her. "No, Debbie. It is your job to do that if you think it is necessary. If she is who you want, send her to Joan, the HR lady. Do you have any money left on that credit card?" "Yes, over half of it." "Okay. For now, use that to buy equipment and stuff. She needs to get started. If she needs the room. Altered maintenance. Set up a meeting with all of the department heads. Include Miss Sally's assistant and Mr. Dave's assistant. Set it up for right after noon in the conference room." I smiled at her. "Honey, I'm going to be dumping a load on your shoulders. Can you handle it?" "Yes, I can do it. I may have to ask your help some, but I'll not bother you unless I have to listen. Set up your days to include a regular meeting with me. The first thing every morning. Wait, you are now my personal assistant. Have a good secretary assigned to you. Give yourself a raise, appropriate to your new job. Now get going, girl. You are suddenly very busy. She grinned happily at me. She threw her arms around my neck and kissed my lips. She jerked back and her small, delicate hands flew to her face. Oh, please. I am so sorry. I just got excited. I laughed at her. Thank you for the sweet little kiss. I may have to promote you every day. She blushed. She looked very serious. I hope I got the promotion because of something more than my kisses. Don't worry about that. Kisses are not now and never will be part of your job description. I gave you the job because I think you will do a good job for me. I need your help to run this company. You will be my eyes and ears. The promotion of Debbie was the best thing I did for the business. She was a tiny tornado. I was seldom bothered by petty matters. She knew that what I did was the heart of the company. She knew that the only function of everyone in the company was to assist and support what I did. The daycare was up and running in short order. A week or two later, Debbie walked in my office for our morning meeting. She was smiling and wearing a new gray business suit. She looked very professional and businesslike. It fit perfectly. Good morning, boss. How are you this morning, Deb? My day is much brighter now that my right hand is here. She grinned. Thank you, sir. You just made my day. Now I want you to meet my new assistant. She leaned over and pushed the button on my intercom. Send her now, please. The door opened, and a tiny little girl walked in. Here I am, Mommy. Debbie took her hand and led her over to me. She said, Dolly, I want you to meet my boss, Mr. John. Say good morning like I taught you, honey. The little girl looked like an angel as she curtsied and sweetly said, Good morning, Mr. John. I am pleased to meet you. I know I had a huge grin on my face as I said, Good morning, Miss Dolly. I'm delighted to meet you. Are you happy in your new daycare here? Oh yes, it is fun. We ride on the bus. I have other kids to play with. I love it because Mommy can come and see me lots of times. I just fell in love. She was adorable, cute as heck, and very smart. I asked her, Dolly, have you ever been to the zoo? She looked at Debbie, then at me. No. Do you mean where all the animals are? Good. I looked at Deb. Dolly, I would love to take you and your mommy to the zoo this Sunday if you would like to go. She looked up at Deb. Mommy, can we go? Can we? I looked at Debbie. I apologize. That was wrong of me to put you on the spot like that. I should have asked you first. Please forgive me. It won't happen again. She smiled gently. You just got excited. I know how you feel. You want to please her and show her new things? Yes. Yes. We would love to go. I'll fix a picnic lunch for us. Debbie, do you have a car? No. Mine broke down, and I don't think it is worth fixing. I am saving up to buy one home. I think as my personal assistant, you need a company car so you can perform your duties. I'll look into it this afternoon after I take you and Miss Dolly to lunch. We had a great time at the zoo. Dolly was very excited and had to see everything. I ended up carrying her most of the time. I never knew how wonderful spending time with a child can be. I enjoyed being with her mother too. The next day, I called our transportation chief and discovered we had a 2-year-old Honda Odyssey that was not being used. I told him to have it washed and detailed inside and out. It had company logos on it. I told him to park in the reserved parking space for my personal assistant and bring me the keys. He said he didn't think we had a parking space reserved for that. I said, change the sign on Mr. Dave's old space. Yes, sir. That afternoon, Debbie stuck her head in my office. Dolly was with her. She said they were going home. I stuck out my lower lip and pretended to cry. Dolly's eyes got big. Mr. John is crying, Mama. Both of them asked what was wrong. I said Dolly didn't kiss me goodbye. Dolly ran to me, holding her arms to be picked up. I swooped her up and laughed. Now I feel better. I got a nice kiss and put her down. I handed Debbie the car keys. She looked puzzled. Missy, you look so professional in your new suit. We cannot tarnish our image by having you ride the bus. The keys are to your company car. It is parked in your new reserved parking place under the roof right outside the main door. What? You heard me, girl. If you don't have a child, seat for Dolly. You need to get one for her. Now get out of here. Debbie stood looking at me for a moment. She shook her head, turned, picked up Dolly, and left. I saw the Honda minivan when I arrived in the morning. Deb wasn't at her desk, so I started the coffee. I went in and fired up my computers. I heard her heels in the hall. I turned and watched as she saw the hot coffee on her desk. She turned and looked at me. Her face broke into a beautiful smile. She walked into my office and closed the door behind her. She walked up to me and looked up at me. She reached up and pulled my face down and kissed me as her arms went around my neck. Her lips parted and her tongue touched mine. She pushed me away a little. Why? Why are you so darn good to me? Well, let's see first. It is because you earn it every day. This place is running smoother than it ever has. Things are done on time with very few errors. For the first time, everyone I see has a smile on their face. And if that is not reason enough, just being near you makes me happy too. Her eyes searched mine. Is all that true? Hey, you know me well enough to know I do not fib. I tell it like it is. John, I need your help. I have not been able to afford good steaks until now. I just bought a couple last night. I also bought a charcoal grill and some charcoal. I have never done it before. Can you show me how tonight? Sure, I would love to. I better confess that there is another reason I want you to come over. Really? Yes. My daughter has been pestering me all week about having you over for dinner. She is getting very insistent about it. She really likes you. She usually doesn't care for men, but she thinks you are wonderful. She blushed. I agree with her on that. Now, about that wonderful minivan, I can't accept it. You don't like it? We love it. It is just too much. Hey, it is a 2-year-old vehicle that has been just sitting for almost a year. It is very economical to run. You need to run errands for the company. Do I need to go out and buy you something better? Better? No. Nothing could please me more. It has everything. It is loaded with extras. It is perfect, but it is too much. Well, we do have a 10-year-old pickup truck you could use. It rattles and stalls a lot. We can let your secretary use the Honda. What? I will use it. She smiled. John, you play me like a fiddle, don't you? Not really. Hey, you talked me into a daycare the first time you met me. You maneuver me pretty well. I am sorry. I don't mean to. Please don't be angry with me. Hey, that is why I hired you. To get me to do things that need to be done and that I don't like to do. That is what a good assistant does. You keep me on time for meetings. You get me to appointments on time and well prepared. You send a card to each employee on their birthday, anniversary, or other occasion. Every day people come up to me and thank me for the cards. I need you. I need to keep you happy. I don't do that. The payroll girl does. That girl. That is bullcrap. You suggested to her that it would improve morale. She told me how it went down. I am the only one you tell what to do. Everyone else you ask to do things. You suggest they do things. Me? You tell what to do. She giggled. It works, doesn't it, Juan? What time should I come by for dinner tonight? Actually, I need to know what time you want to eat. Well, why don't you go home and change and come right over? I forgot to tell you. The grill is still in the box in the van. It was too awkward for me to carry in by myself. I will be there as soon as I can. Okay, no school tonight? No, they don't have it on Friday nights. No one would show up. The two sweet little ladies loved the steaks, baked potatoes, and corn on the cob. All were done on the grill. After dinner, we played cards. They beat me badly at Go Fish. I took them to a nearby Dairy Queen for dessert. We had a good time and got messy in the car. I helped Deb get Dolly ready for bed. Deborah and I sat and sipped a little special wine I get from a local winery. Finally, I knew it was time to go home. I asked if I could see them tomorrow. Deb looked at me seriously and didn't answer. I waited a moment and said, Okay, I guess you guys are busy. I'll see you at work. John, I need to talk to you. That scared the crap out of me, and I come on too strong. I told her I was listening. She said, I know you always listen to everything I say, but you aren't getting my messages. What am I missing? John, I think I need to release you from your promise to me. I think I need to find another job. My heart stopped beating. Why? I thought you loved your job. What is wrong? I owe you so much now that I can never repay you. I just don't know what to do. You don't owe me a thing. Nothing. I received far more from you than I have given. How can that be? I haven't given you a thing. Yes, you have. The time I have spent with you and Dolly are the most precious times of my whole life. Your compassion for an older man saved my life. You are the sweetest female I have ever known. If I wasn't so old, I would caught you with all my might. To be honest, Debbie, I shouldn't have said that. I guess you were right. You need a young man your own age. She looked at me. What am I hearing here? She looked puzzled. Am I hearing right? Are you saying that because of your age, you will not court me? Are you saying that you love me? Yes, I am sorry. I don't want to embarrass you or frighten you, but yes, I do love you with all my heart. I watched her carefully as I poured out my heart. A large smile grew on her lovely face. She jumped in my lap and kissed me passionately. She broke the kiss and rained kisses all over my face. John, honey, I love you too. Dolly loves you very much. I want you tonight. I want to wake up in the morning with you in my bed. I don't know how to please you. You have to teach me about love. I knew I had a silly smile on my face. She kissed me again and said, John, the first don't know much about love, but I do know you are the sexiest man I have ever met. I fell in love with you that first day. I came to work for you. She caressed my face as she talked softly to me. She continued, I meet and talk to young guys at school all the time. They are like immature children. They don't care about anyone but themselves. They are shallow and have no depth of character. You are just the opposite, and I love that about you. I put my lips to hers and silenced her. It was a long, sweet kiss. I picked her up and carried her to her bedroom. She kissed me softly and gently. Oh, John, cuddling like this when we are through is almost as good as the loving. I love this dreamy, relaxed feeling of contentment and of being full of your love. She giggled. I hope you can dance as well on your feet as you do flat on your back. Dance? Yes, dear, dance. I love to dance. Mama and my uncle were wonderful dancers. I even taught dancing for the Arthur Murray Studio the last 3 years of high school. My fantasy as a girl was to marry a tall, strong, handsome man who would dance with me off into the sunset for our honeymoon. Well, 3 out of 4 isn't bad. Actually, your performance in bed cancels out the dancing. I can get by without the dancing, but I absolutely adore your sweet loving. There is no way I can ever live without that. I thought about the things I had to accomplish Monday, so I would have sufficient free time to arrange for our marriage license, blood tests, honeymoon where we would live, and a myriad of other things. Eureka! I would just turn this little dynamo I held in my arms loose on the problems, and it would be organized in a heartbeat. I looked down at her and was greeted by a smile and sparkling clear blue eyes. She grinned. I was watching you think. I know you arrived at some kind of a solution to your dilemma. Can I help you? I told her what I was thinking. She smiled and closed her eyes, saying, No problem. I have it all in my desk. Go back to sleep. I tried to sleep, but the problems wouldn't go away. I watched the love of my life as she snuggled against my side when I slowly opened. She gently smiled. I love you so much. There are no problems we can't solve in a couple of minutes. The biggest one is that I never want to sleep without you next to me again, as long as I live. Do you have room for Dolly and I where you live? Yes. I am in a 3-bedroom, 2.5-bath condo right now. We can move you today. She snuggled against me and shifted her hand to my face and pulled me down for a kiss on my cheek. See? One problem solved already. I need to pee and brush my teeth so I can give you a real kiss. Okay, go for it. When she returned, she had a towel tucked around. She grinned as she raced through the bedroom and into the living area. She was back in a second, clutching a small notebook. She slipped in bed with me. She leafed through the book, then showed me a page. The title of the page was Marriage Information. It listed addresses, phone numbers, and hours of operation for a number of places, including the clerk of the court, license, notary 6, and our building. There was a section listing things for me to decide about banking, credit cards, car titles, insurance, auto life, health, and homeowners. I looked at her. How long have you been planning this? She giggled. Ever since I first met you. I did all that after you fell asleep last night. I couldn't sleep. I twisted and turned with all that on my mind. So I got up and worked on it for an hour. Then I thought about you in bed and I had to jump back in with you. I have to fight the urge to be touching you all the time. Hey, give in to your urges. I love that too. Things went like clockwork. We were married in my office Monday afternoon. Just Debbie, Dolly, several witnesses. The notary and I were there. Dolly was so happy and excited. She wanted me to hold her all the time. Debbie had the same idea. Dolly was in my left arm, and Debbie held my right arm. I couldn't have been happier. Both of them were excited about their new home. It was a bit longer drive from the office. Deb found a young man. She was training to take over most of her day-to-day chores. Jeff Petrino was a handsome guy, about 30, large and athletic-looking. I was not happy with it, but said nothing. The next morning, I noticed Debbie was occupied with Jeff. Most of the time, I went to the secretarial pool and talked to Joe and the head of the pool. I looked the girls over. There was one I didn't recognize. She was very attractive and quite young. I asked Betty her name and told Betty what I wanted. Betty grinned. I know exactly what you want. She will be in your office in the morning, ready to take dictation. I went into the drafting section and checked on some new large-size drawings of some new sectional walls for a universal building I was designing. It was almost closing time when I returned to my office and found Debbie showing Jeff how our intercom system worked. I was carrying Dolly and I said, "Hi, Debbie. Dolly and I are ready to go. We will be waiting in the atrium." "No, wait for me, honey. We just finished up." She ran to get her jacket. She was adorable in the little outfit she was wearing. She had lost a lot of weight and was looking darn good. She only had 3 real nice suites, but she mixed and matched them into 9 outfits. Mixing in blouses, sweaters, and accessories gave her many more. I made up my mind that Debbie needed a real shopping spree with Dolly and I. Deb grabbed my arm and we were off. "Where are we going?" she asked. I told her she would soon find out. She looked wide-eyed at me when I parked in front of a huge high-end department store. We got Dolly in her stroller. She was a bit heavy to carry through a store, and if you put her down, she had to be watched every second. We entered the women's clothing section and were greeted by a young lady who identified herself as Jane, a shopper's assistant, and wanted to know if she could assist us. I informed her that my lovely new bride needed a whole new wardrobe, including business attire, leisure wear, and lingerie. I handed her a slip of paper listing those things. Plus, I listed cocktail dresses and evening gowns with shoes, purses, and accessories. I showed the assistant a figure of $5,000 as the amount she had to spend. The girl grinned at me. "How long do we have until closing time tonight? And if necessary, we can return in the morning." "Wonderful." Debbie stepped in front of me, put her hands on her hips, looked up at me and said, "Don't I have any say in this?" "You sure do, sweetheart. You pick what you like or need, and I will tell you if I like it or not. Your decision is final, but you are getting a new wardrobe. Dolly's turn is tomorrow." The assistant looked at Debbie. "Where did you find a guy like this?" "Wow, I am very, very lucky. I know it too. My daughter and I would love him if he were a poor homeless man and I had to support him." The girl giggled. "This way is lots better. Believe me, this is going to be easy with your figure. We'll start with lingerie and find out all your sizes. Then I think we will find suits and dresses for business. Then go for shoes and accessories to match them. Then we do the others that way. We will keep a running total." Debbie and the girl hurried off. 2 hours later, I was sitting there holding a sleeping Dolly in my arms, wondering what I had let myself in for. I must have dozed off and was awakened by a kiss from a smiling Debbie. "You poor things. We are going to quit for now and meet again tomorrow afternoon. Wait until you see all the beautiful things I got. I got 6 suits and 6 dresses, shoes, blouses, sweaters, and accessories for under $2,500. When we were home at my condo, we were very tired after carrying 4 loads of boxes into her dressing room. The adjoining walk-in closet was almost empty, even though it held all the clothes she owned. She started opening boxes and putting things away. I told her that I would open the boxes if she would put things where she wanted them. I opened boxes and carefully placed the items on the bed. Deb took them, but then away. It went much faster. Then I soon got ahead of her. I went to my freezer and looked to see what was available for dinner. Not much. I asked if she preferred Chinese or Italian. Deb said they loved Chinese. I found the menu for nearest Chinese place. We decided on a combination platter for 2. I told the girl who took my order to select the choices that were the best sellers they had. The girl thought that was a clever way to order because I would get the items they cooked the best. The food was very good. Dolly loved the fortune cookies. She only a part of one cookie, but she opened all of them and insisted that we read the fortune inside to her. She took them very seriously. After she opened the last cookie, she handed the message to me. "Read it, Daddy, read it." I looked at it carefully. "You are a very lucky girl," it says. "Your daddy is going to take you shopping for some new dresses tomorrow. Be a good girl, and more prizes will come to you." Her eyes lit up. Was that for me? I don't know. It couldn't be for me. I looked at Debbie. "Do you have a daddy who will buy some dresses?" "No, you are not my daddy. And we already knew you were going to buy me more clothes. It has to be for Dolly." The shopping went well the next day, and both girls got lots of things. When we got home and had everything put away, Debbie showed me a site on the internet she loved. She showed me all the things on Victoria's Secret. She had a little money left from shopping in town, so I told her to get some summer stuff, so that if I could get some projects further along, we could take a week off for our honeymoon somewhere in the islands. I let her spend another $1,000. I knew she was going to be irresistibly cute in many of those outfits. She had modeled some of her new clothes for me, and she looked wonderful in anything she put on. Her figure made the clothes look good. There was one dress that looked as if it was painted on her body. I knew she would not be able to dance very well in it with the pencil slim shirt. She was so happy with everything that I knew that it was money well spent. A happy bride is a sexy bride. Deborah was very happy. I knew that I would reap the rewards from that. After Dolly was in bed asleep, I pulled her into my lap, and we enjoyed a kiss or two. I pushed her back a bit and said, "Honey, may I suggest that this might be a good time to call your mother and tell her about us?" She thought about it for a few minutes. "I was thinking about doing that a while ago. I still love them. I suspect they know where I am, or was, until a few days ago. Shall I do it now? It has been over 3 years since I left. I think you need to talk to your mom and tell her how you are. I think you need to get back together. I am sure they wanted you to do what they thought was the best thing for you. They didn't realize what a tough and capable daughter she had." Tears ran down her cheeks. "Is that how you think of me?" "Just part of how I see you. I didn't include beautiful, sweet, intelligent, determined, and a whole bunch of other things." Deb got up and picked up a wireless phone and dialed a number. She listened, then said, "Hi, Mom, it's me. Debbie." "Yes, it is really me. How are you and Uncle Bill?" She smiled and told her mother that she missed both of them. She said she had a daughter named after her grandmother. She told her mother she had just gotten married to the best husband in the world, and that she wanted to share her joy with her family. They talked for an hour. She hung up and hurried to me with fresh tears in her eyes. She jumped in my lap and kissed me passionately. "Oh, John, you were so wonderful. I'm glad you made me do that. Mom was so happy to hear from me. Uncle Bill, too. They want us to come and see them soon. I asked where they lived. She said they lived in the little town of Melrose, Florida, less than an hour away." I looked at her. "The day after tomorrow is Sunday. How about then?" Deb smiled. "I'll call them in the morning, okay?" I nodded. Debbie got up and said she was going to get Dolly to bed and for me to come in a couple of minutes and kiss Dolly goodnight. As I approached Dolly's door, I heard them talking. Debbie was saying prayers with Dolly. They asked God to bless their loved ones and each other and to protect them from harm. Dolly said Daddy too. Debbie said, "Yes, sweetie. Daddy most of all. We love him most of all." I stepped through the door and hugged them as they hugged each other. I picked Dolly up in my arms and hugged and kissed her. She kissed and hugged me back. I told her that I loved her and told her to sleep well. Tears ran down my cheeks when she said she loved her mommy and daddy as much as she could. She was so darn sweet. I truly loved both my girls. I sort of prayed we would have another one soon. I was busy fixing breakfast when Debbie made the call to her mother. She was wearing a broad smile when she told me we were on for the Sunday visit. She didn't elaborate, and I chose not to ask. The Saturday afternoon shopping trip was soon a hunt for a nice conservative outfit for each of my girls for a visit to Grandma's house. They finally settled on almost identical outfits. They both wore denim skirts with black turtleneck sweaters and denim jackets. Dolly wore black tights and little black boots. Her mother was lovely in black leggings under knee-high black boots with heels. The both wore bright red ball caps with their golden hair and ponytails out the back. Together, they were very, very cute alone. Deb looked beautiful in a country casual way. Me jeans, a light blue shirt, and a navy blue blazer with sneakers. Debbie guided me to the huge old home. The door opened when we stopped under the portico. A lovely older woman, followed by an older man, greeted Deb with open arms. Her mother and Debbie held each other and cried. I got Dolly out of her child seat, and I held her hand and walked up to the older man. I held out my hand. You must be Uncle William. I am John Nelson. He took my hand in a firm grip. You are right, Mr. Nelson. He smiled broadly. This beautiful little girl must be my niece, Dolly. Yes, sir. This is our daughter, Dolly. Dolly, say hello to your Uncle William. The older gentleman dropped to one knee and held his arms open to Dolly. She smiled and curtsied. I am glad to meet you, sir. Tears ran down the old man's cheeks. I am very happy to meet you two, Dolly. May I pick you up and introduce you to your grandmother? Dolly looked at me. I nodded, and she said that was fine. He picked her up and said, Sis, I have someone here. You want to meet your granddaughter? Her name is a familiar one. She is named after our mother. The older woman spun around and stared wide-eyed at the child. Her hands flew to her face. Oh my God, she is so adorable. She held her arms out and Dolly twisted around and reached for me. Dolly screamed, No! I want my daddy! I hurried to take her and cuddle and comfort her. Debbie and her mother looked shocked. I held Dolly and whispered a question to her. She whispered the answer in my ear. I walked off a little ways and quietly talked to Dolly. I told her how I felt about the situation. She nodded her head. Yes, Daddy, I will do it. I carried her back to the others. I looked at them. Dolly is a bit afraid of Debbie's mother. It seems that every time Deb talked about her mother, she would break down and cry. Dolly doesn't know why, but she is afraid of Debbie's mother. Debbie, are you afraid of your mother? Deb shook her head and said, No, I love Mama. I held Dolly tightly to my chest. Dolly, I love you, and would never let anyone hurt you. Your mommy cried because she loves her mommy, and missed her very much. There was a mistake, and she couldn't go home. The mistake has been fixed now. You can hug your mommy's own mommy now. Won't that be fun? She seems very nice. Your mommy is very happy to see her, isn't she? Dolly looked at me. Will you be here next to me? Yes, I will be right here beside you, okay? I smiled at Deb's mother and took Dolly over to her. Mrs. Summers gently placed a hand on either side of Dolly's face. I love you, Dolly. Dolly was my mommy's name, too. Dolly looked at Debbie. Did you know her mommy's name was Dolly, too? Yes, dear. I loved my mommy's mommy very much, and I wanted my baby to have her name. Dolly looked at her mother's mother. Are you going to hurt my mommy any more? Mrs. Summers shook her head. No, sweetie. Never again. Dolly looked back at me. I nodded. She turned back to Mrs. Summers. You can kiss me now. I stepped slightly away while the mother, grandmother, and daughter group became friends. We all moved into the house. Dolly sat on her grandmother's lap and seemed happy. Debbie smiled at me with love, and I smiled back. Uncle Bill smiled and said, Mr. Nelson, I recognize you now. We have met briefly before you gave us a proposal for a new clubhouse for our country club several months ago. All you and I did was shake hands. I told him I still didn't recall him. I remembered the occasion clearly, but I didn't remember him. He remarked that the club still had 3 more proposals to hear before they made a decision. He said that so far my presentation was head and shoulders above the rest. We had a nice lunch, and Dolly and Mrs. Summers were best of friends. Now, I was calling Uncle Bill just plain Bill. By then, I like him very much. He confessed that insisting Debbie have an abortion was the biggest mistake of his whole life. I grinned Bill. I hope I never get in an adversarial confrontation with my wife. I have never seen a more determined opponent. She is very intelligent, very focused, and is like a little pit bull. She will instantly go for the jugular. She came to work for my company about 6 months ago. The first day she was there, she on her own researched, planned, and promoted a daycare facility for the building. It was approved 2 days later and up and running in 2 more days. She now runs my whole company. She is my personal assistant, and she is a tiny dynamo. She has reorganized most of the departments in my company. She has changed the way people do things, and production is way up. She took over for 2 of the department heads I got rid of. She solves all office problems before they get to me. I have never seen her equal at organizing things. My profits are up 15% since she took over, totally due to increased efficiency. And best of all, she is so darn sweet that her smile makes everyone happy. Especially me. She is rarely without a smile on her face. I don't suppose I need to tell you I am very much in love with your niece. No, I can see that it is mutual too. I am very happy for her. We always got along fine until she got pregnant. She said she would not kill her unborn baby no matter what I said. I told her I would pay for the operation. The next morning, she was gone. She walked away with what she had on her back. We hunted for her for months. There was no sign of her. If she stayed in this area, she must not have had a regular job, stayed in a hotel or motel, or done anything that left her name on paper. We gave up after almost a year. Her sister was a piece of crap, but Debbie was a jewel. It was a pleasant afternoon. Granny wanted Dolly to spend a day or two with her, but Deb and I thought she was a bit too young. I didn't mention that I wasn't ready for that yet. Dolly only spent about half of her days in the new daycare. The other part was spent in Deb's office, or with me. She was soon welcome in any office on her floor. Debbie was a hands-on manager. She was in every office every day. She asked many, many questions, and our people soon learned that I don't know was not an acceptable answer. If you wanted a happy manager, the proper answer was, "I'll find out." Then you received an encouraging smile or a pat on the back. If she was pleased, she would happily praise you and thank you for a job well done. Everyone craved her smile. A frown was devastating. Debbie saw the new secretary sitting at Deb's old desk. She was frowning when she entered my office. Closing the door behind her, she walked to me and asked how the new girl was working out. I said fine, but she doesn't kiss near as good as you do. She stared at me with a tear trickling down her cheek. I jumped up and took her in my arms. I am only teasing. I will never know if any girl kisses better than you do. You and Dolly have all my kisses for as long as I live. Deb looked up in my eyes and a smile grew. Really? Do you mean that? Of course you won't. All of my kisses. Hugs too. Of course that may change. What? Well, you may have to share sometime in the future. No way. No sharing? Never. You mean that I can't kiss our new babies? Well, maybe in that case. But she smiled. The little chick outside doesn't qualify as a new baby. Both of us were working hard to get ahead on our projects so we could take a week off for our honeymoon. I walked past Deb's office and glanced in and saw she and Jeff standing by her desk, looking at some papers. He was standing a bit behind her, and he leaned back and checked out her while she leaned forward over the desk. I saw him quickly lean forward and look where she was pointing. I continued on to my office. Later the same day, I was coming back from a fast visit to the daycare to see Dolly, and I felt the need to use the men's room. I sat in a stall when several men entered chatting. One guy said, "Yeah, and she has the cutest little bum in the world. She is warming up to me more and more each day. I know the old fart can't keep that little hottie happy." The other guy spoke. "Lots of luck. I be careful, though. Messing with the boss's wife could be hazardous to your job. BS. She runs everything around here, including him. When she says jump, he says, 'How high?' Dear, just watch yourself. If you had a wife like that, you would shocked well keep an eye on her." Yeah, but she told me that we would be going out in the field to some job sites in the next day or two. That will be my chance to really hit on her. Then she'll be mine. I have never missed yet. I heard their urinals flush and the door open and close. I returned to my office and noticed Debbie and Jeff laughing together as I passed. I sat at my desk for a moment, then pressed the button on the intercom. "Debbie, if you are not busy, please come in here for a moment." 5 minutes later, she walked in my door. Jeff was right behind her. She smiled. "Hi, honey. What do you need?" I smiled at her, then looked at Jeff. "Jeff, please shut the door behind you. Wait in Mrs. Nelson's office. She will be with you shortly." I stood and took her in my arms and kissed her passionately. I glanced up to see him watching as he slowly closed the door. She giggled. "I love it if that was all you wanted. No, I want you to fire Jeff." "What?" "He is doing fine. He has only been here a couple of weeks. He is still in his probation period. You don't have to give a reason." She was puzzled. Why isn't it enough that I asked you to do it? That doesn't answer my question. Why? Debbie, you have the responsibility of running my business for me. I have given you a completely free hand in running it. I have never questioned any decision you have made. I have made a request. You make the decision. Debbie watched me for a minute, and then she turned and walked out the door. I smiled to myself. I knew she would make the right decision. Several hours later, at closing time, I heard her heels on the floor and looked up to see her smiling face. She said, "Hi, honey. Are you ready to go home?" "I sure am. Let's go." She took my arm and held it tightly as we walked to the elevator, to the ground floor, in the crowded elevator. She pressed against me and I looked down at her. She smiled in mouth. "I love you," I said in a normal voice. "I love you too, sweetheart." Debbie giggled. "Me too." One of our tenants, the senior partner in a law firm, said, "John, why don't you guys get a bed?" Hey, Irving, that is where we are headed right now. John, if my wife was that beautiful, I wouldn't let her get this far from one. No, Irv, if I were as smart as you law guys, I would have a high two-bed in my office like you guys do. Hey, we were all Boy Scouts. Be prepared. I know that if my wife looked like Debbie and worked with me all day, it would sure get used a bunch. I laughed. Hey, now there is a thought. It never occurred to me. Debbie giggled. Bull, that is not what you tell me every day. You say, wait until we get home, then you just play with Dolly. But my love, you are well worth waiting for. The door to the elevator opened and we hurried to get Dolly from daycare. In the car, Deb said, aren't you going to ask me if I fire Jeff? Why wouldn't you fire him? I hadn't thought of it that way, but you were right. Will you tell me why he had to go? If I think you need to know, I will. I think I know anyway. One of our workers asked to see me in his office. He told me Jeff was telling everyone he and I were going to get together sexually in the next few days. He thought it was inappropriate for Jeff to talk that way, no matter what the true story was. He said he thought I ought to know about it. I thanked him and asked if he believed the story. He said heck no, and that he just thought I should know about it. Good man. Promote him at the first chance we have. You knew something, didn't you? Did you fire him before or after you got the information? About 30 minutes before. Why? Oh, I see. It was a test to see if I would resist firing him. Right. Sort of. Well, I thought about it and knew you would never do that without a shocked good reason. And that there was a reason for not telling me why. I am a bit disappointed that you didn't trust me completely. If the shoe was on the other foot, would you test me? Debbie laughed. Probably. We are both learning to trust each other. You have to learn how to trust after your trust was destroyed. You are learning too. I said, well, honey, I have to confess that firing Jeff bothered me for some reason. I have always felt I knew him from somewhere. The feeling was not enough to keep me from doing what you asked of me. I feel absolutely no remorse. What would you like for dinner tonight? I grinned. You. About 30 minutes later, the doorbell rang, and I hurried to open it. As the door opened, a large revolver was pointed between my eyes. I stepped back, and the guy holding the gun said, "Freeze. Don't move or I'll blow your brains out." I froze. I recognized the man behind the gun. It was Jeff Petrino. I composed myself. "Good evening, Mr. Petrino. How can I help you?" I heard Deb say, "Jeff, please put the gun down and we can talk this out before it goes too far." "Get out where I can see you. Where is my daughter?" "Your daughter?" "Yes. Dolly is our daughter. Yours and mine. Debbie, yours and mine. She should be raised by you and I. Her mother and father, not some stranger. You are wrong, Jeff. John, here is Dolly's father. We have been going together for 4 years. We couldn't get married until he could get a divorce. Where you think you know me from? You worked at the downtown Carter Brothers department store in Ocala. I worked there too. You were the manager of the ladies' shoe department. Sorry, Jeff. I never worked in Ocala in my life before. I went to work for John. The first worked for an auto dealer in Gainesville as a secretary. Sorry, but you have the wrong girl." "How well did you know this girl? Did you date for a long time?" "Well, I didn't know her that well. I saw her around a lot, but we didn't get together until we met at a company Christmas party." I was watching the gun as it drooped lower as he talked to Debbie. He was totally focused on Debbie now, as I hit him as hard as I could on the side of his head. He dropped like a rock. I snatched the pistol up just after it hit the floor. Deb was on him in a flash and kicked him as hard as she could, right in the balls. You know, good son of a jerk. Assault me, will you?" She kicked him in the head and face several times, screaming and yelling when a deputy sheriff grabbed her and held her. Then suddenly, there were half a dozen deputies in my apartment when everything calmed down and Jeff was in handcuffs. We learned that the pizza delivery man saw Jeff pointing a gun at us and slipped out and called the police on his cell phone. We checked on Dolly and found her sound asleep in her bed. I paid for the pizza and gave him a $1.50 tip. We were required to sit down and make statements about what had occurred. The deputy brought his laptop computer in and pulled up the information on Debbie's assault case. He said Jeff would be charged with that case and with assault with a deadly weapon, home invasion, and possibly other crimes. After the deputies left, we heated up the food and quietly ate a little dinner. Neither of us had much of an appetite, and we mostly just sat and cuddled. She looked up at me. I don't even remember seeing him before he came to work for us. I think that subconsciously you may have recalled him, but your mind shut it out to protect you from going through the trauma of the assault. It was possibly because you were drugged when it happened, and it was more like a bad dream than reality. Or it is easily possible that you never got a good look at his face if it was dark or he had something over your eyes. Deb glanced up at me. I sure hope they lock him up for a long time. Wow, you really decked him. How is your hand? I said. It hurts some. It'll be okay in the morning. Deb said, Let me see it. Oh look, it's all swollen up. We need to get some ice on it. When she got back with a bowl and some ice, I said, Honey, you were pretty slick with confusing him as to who you are. He didn't know what to believe. Well, I thought I would distract him enough so you could overpower him or convince him he had the wrong girl. You had that right. He did have the wrong girl. I'm glad you had those ballet slippers on. And not the stilettos you wore to work. You would have killed him. Hey, nobody threatens my baby or my man and walks away without something to remember me by. She lifted my hand and looked at it again. She gently dried it, then softly kissed it. She shivered. Darn, I almost lost you, didn't I? Tears rolled down her cheeks and she shook violently. I pulled her to me and held her until she calmed down. I had her go get ready for bed while I locked up. We cuddled and talked for a while. I told her to research both of us getting concealed weapon permits. I also asked her to call a local martial arms place and see if there were anything they could recommend that we could carry until we got our permits. I was especially worried about something she could use. She was so beautiful, dainty, and small. She appeared to be an easy target. She said she knew of a place near Melrose where she grew up. We went to bed and cuddled and caressed each other until we fell asleep. My hand bothered me until I got up and wrapped it with an ace bandage. I was just starting when a little pair of hands took the bandage from my hands. Honey, you can't do that right by yourself. Here, let me do it for you. She wrapped it lightly but firmly, and it made big difference when I tried to sleep. When I bought something with my hand, it didn't wake me up. By the morning, I thanked her profusely for helping me. She grinned. John, my dearest husband, you must learn to let me help you more. Every time you bumped your hand, you groaned and woke me up. And I wake up. Any time you get out of bed. I just adore doing things for you. So please let me help, okay? I was a bit hampered by my hand, but because most of my key inputs are touchscreen, I was not slowed down much. My sweet wife checked on me every half hour and rewrapped my hand every so often. She said she had both of us scheduled for a concealed weapons course at a local gun shop at 4 p.m. for the next 5 days. I asked if she had ever fired a gun. Yes. Uncle Bill taught me to shoot a revolver and an automatic pistol. I have shot rifles and shotguns too, but mostly pistols. I have shot .22, .38s, 9 miss, and .45s. I have shot a 0.44 Magnum too, but I am not good with it. It's too heavy for me to hold up for very long, and I hurry my shots. I do like the power it has, though. I guess I'll have to get some pointers from you. Bull. John. I saw that picture of you when you were a Marine. You were so cute and had a chest full of medals, including marksmanship medals for both rifle and pistol. I wasn't snooping around. I was looking for an envelope and saw it in the middle drawer of your desk in the den. There is nothing in our house you can't see. It is our home, and I have no secrets from you. At least none that you will ever find. I hope. Darn. Now I will have to search every nook and cranny. Search all you want. She looked at me for a minute, then smiled. Baby, I know you. You are a terrible liar. You just can't look me in the eye if you were fibbing, even when you were joking or teasing. I love that, and I love you with all my heart. In the morning, after we were ready for work, I took Debbie into my dad. I showed her my wall gun locker hidden behind the false wall in the closet. There were over 20 guns hidden there with the ammo to fit each weapon. I told her to pick out one to take to our class that afternoon. Deb surprised me when she picked out an old Ivory Johnson 9-shot .22 revolver with a 2-inch barrel. She grinned up at me. Uncle Bill had one of these. I loved it. Then something else caught her eye. She removed a Walther PPK automatic in .380 caliber. She eased the slide back to check if it was loaded. She glanced up at me. Can I try this one too? Uncle Bill had one of these in .32 caliber. What do you think of the .380? I like it better than the .32. They are identical, except for the cartridge. I believe that having a gun that is one you like and are comfortable with is more important than the power of the cartridge. Like my daddy told me, he had an old master pistol earlier, who told him if you shoot the perp in the left eye, it don't matter none. If it is a .22 or a .4 or 5, he is dead. A miss with a cannon shot. Don't hurt him. None at all. He was the sheriff in the town of Beeville, Texas, in the early 1950s, and carried an Ever Johnson just like that one as an off-duty weapon. He had a bunch of reasons he liked it. He said it was lightweight. Extra ammo didn't weigh much either. It didn't cost a quarter as much to practice with. He said you could put the pistol around a corner with your nose up against it and touching the back of your hand, and shoot without danger to your nose from the recoil or a slide breaking it. Those are some things to think about. I agree that accuracy is the most important thing. If you hit someone in the face, it is bound to be more effective than just the noise. We left work early and went to drop off at Grandma's house, and then to the martial arts center and met the owner. We told him of our experience and of the fact that we had Dolly, a typical toddler who had her little fingers and everything. We wanted some sort of self-defense protection that was compatible with small children. Locked-up guns are not quickly available. He showed us an item called a self-defense baton. The one he liked the best is an innocent-looking item that appears to be a slim flashlight, about 8 inches long and a belt case. A snap of the wrist extends it to 21 in long. He offers a 1-hour class that teaches everything you need to know about it, including hands-on demonstrations. We purchased 2 of them and arranged for the class the next week at the gun shop. The person we talked to said we would have no problem with the written test, and with the practical test, we went to the firing range and tried out both guns. She liked the PBKs best, and after half an hour, she could put every shot of the 7-round clip in the black part of the silhouette targets at 10 and 15-yard ranges. We bought her a clip-on holster for the Walther. She also found several attractive purses that had built-in holsters that fit the PBKs perfectly. She got them in black, white, and brown. I opted for my Smith & Wesson .40 cal military and police automatic. I already had shoulder and belt holsters, but bought a fanny pack holster I liked. We left with the study material for the concealed weapons course. We went back to pick up Dolly and had to show Granny and Uncle Bill what we bought. Bill liked the batons and said he had something similar he carried in his car for self-defense. He showed me a piece of 3/8-inch steel rebar with a small nut on one end and 2 larger nuts on the other end. Between the nuts was a rusty piece of steel between 2 washers. Everything was covered by light rust. He grinned. That only cost a fraction of those fancy things you bought. If I protect myself with it and have to hurt someone, I can say it isn't a weapon. It is just something I saw and picked it up off of the street to protect myself with. I tried it with threaded rod, but that bends too easily. I looked it over, and it did look like something that fell off of a truck or trailer. Darn. Good idea. After the incident with Jeff, I had our security people install hidden day and night. Vision TV cameras at the front and rear doors and in the garage. The monitors were by each door and on the master console. I made Debbie go 3 more times to the shooting range. The owner said he thought Deb was an excellent shot already. I said I had something more to teach her. When we were set up on the range, I had her put her PPK in her purse and hang the purse over her right shoulder. I stood her on the firing line and put the target about 10 feet down the range. I told her to take the gun and point it at the target. She started to pull the pistol out of the purse. "No," I yelled. "Shoot through the purse. Just point and shoot." She did. She missed. I let her remove the gun from the purse and made her shoot, holding the gun down where the purse would be. She got a hit on her third shot. After 3 boxes of ammo, she could hit the target with the gun in a plastic grocery bag down by her hip. Even when facing to either side of the target, she had learned the art of point shooting. I moved her back to 20 feet, and she still hit the target most of the time. I went and got the owner. The gun was in her purse. I stood her on the firing line with the target at 5 yards. I turned her so she was facing well to the left of the target. I said, "Rapid fire. Fire at will." She fired 6 shots in groups of 2 shots with less than a second between groups. I patted her on the back and flipped the target backlight on. "Wow," gasped the owner. The holes in the target lit up. All 6 shots were in the kill area of the target. She looked up at me sorrowfully. "My purse is ruined." Well, I ruined it anyway. I took out the silk lining on that side of the divider and put all your stuff on the good side. You need to buy similar purses and have them altered. If you were all dressed up in an evening dress and carry a little tiny clutch purse or something, you will have stick by me for protection. She smiled up at me. "I always look to you for protection. You are my hero," the shop owner said. "Can he shoot that?" "Good." Debbie looked at him. "He puts that 0.40 in a plastic bag and does that good at twice the distance. Never bet against him at shooting darts or pool. He is just uncanny." She smiled up at me and said, "There are other things he does that I can't tell you about that are unbelievable too." I know I blushed because he looked at me and laughed. Now that is what I call a testimonial. And from the smile on her face, I believe her. We both aced the written test and received our permits in the mail several weeks later. We continued to go to the shooting range about once a week for several months, then slowed to once a month. My sweet little wife was deadly, with the point shooting out to about 10 yards. If she took her time and aimed each shot at 25 yards, she put 80% of her shots in a 1-inch 11/16 number 10 center circle, 45 centimeters, and the rest of them would be in the number 9 and number 8 rings. She consistently shot 30-round scores in the 280 and 290. I was very hard-pressed to keep up with her. I think she got better than I am at point shooting. I suspect that she starts missing now and then on purpose, so she doesn't beat me. Whenever we pass close to the gun store, she insists on stopping to fire a few rounds. She still carries the first purse. I used to teach her point shooting in the trunk of our caddy. The front end of the purse is now cut away. The owner clears the range for her when she shoots. She would stride up to the firing line in a little sundress and a broad-brimmed sun hat, strappy little high-heeled sandals, and the purse over her shoulder and her hand in the purse. 6 shots would blast out in 3 groups of 2 shots in about a second and a half. She would pull out the empty clip and slap a fresh clip in the range. Master would bring the old target in and run out 2 new targets in the shooting lanes, 2 lanes away on both sides of her lane. The targets were edge onto her. The rangemaster said, "Honey, you have a target on each side. I want you to hit the target on the right, then the one on the left, then the right again for 6 rounds. Start when the targets face you. They will face you for 4 seconds, then flip around." "Okay." Debbie smiled. "Right." There was a click as the targets appeared. 6 shots blasted from her purse as she jerked the purse from side to side before the targets disappeared. She looked down and quickly changed clips again. This is what she had been taught. Never leave your weapon inoperable for even a short time. That is when a well-trained assailant will attack. I love that everything I told my beautiful wife about things like that were followed religiously. After we each fired a couple of clips of ammo, we went about our business. I know that we were the only people for whom he would clear the range. He did it for several reasons. He and the other guys loved to watch Debbie shoot, and they loved to just see her walk by. We were never there for very long. The rangemaster told us about a web page that sold many types of ladies' holster or purses for all occasions. We bought several, including a small clutch purse and gold that would only hold the pistol if Debbie squeezed the back of the purse between her right thumb and forefinger. The pistol would be ejected from the purse, and it would slap right back in her hand, ready to fire. Debbie is a treat for girl watchers. She usually wears high heels, short skirts, and sexy tops. She knows I don't get jealous about other men watching her. It is one of my favorite pastimes, too. One afternoon, Debbie entered my office and shut the door behind her. She smiled, pushed my chair back, and climbed into my lap. She kissed me soundly. "Honey, I have checked everything out. We are in shocked good shape in all respects. I have quit taking the pill, and I want to leave for a week's vacation anywhere you want to go. Mama and Uncle Bill will keep Dolly. She is very comfortable with them now." "Okay, Mrs. Dynamo, organize it. I think someplace tropical. Warm beaches, fishing, and everything. Get us packed and let me know when we are leaving." "Well, lover, we are leaving Friday, the day after tomorrow, from Gainesville on Delta Airlines for a week at a clothing-optional adult resort on Grand Cayman Island. We return in 1 week." I couldn't help grinning. "Okay, how much is this going to cost? Less than a week's pay should cover everything. I suppose we are all packed and ready." "Sure, it was easy. 1 small bag and my makeup case ought to do it because it is clothing optional, right?" "What? I don't believe you," Debbie giggled. "Easy, my love. It is clothing optional, but I don't know if I can do that. They assured me the clothing optional part is only in one section of the resort, including a separate section of the beach, a snack bar, and swimming pool. I figure 2 large suitcases and 2 carry-ons. Our vacation was delightful. We only tried the clothing optional part 1 time. It was somewhat of a disaster. We went to the optional section of the beach and found an unpopulated section and stripped and went in the water. We had fun playing in the water. Then we stretched out on our beach towels and soaked up some rays. We both dozed off and woke up with an audience. One guy walked up and asked if Deb would like to star in the adult film for big bucks. He had a large, handsome guy with him who was stark bare. He grinned and winked at Debbie. The guy said he would guarantee a good wage for a year. I said, "My wife is the CEO of a multi-million-dollar business right now. You will have to beat $9,000 a week with a 5-year contract. After that, you would have to talk me into letting her do it." He looked at her, then at me. "You are kidding, aren't you? If you mean about how much she makes, I am serious. She actually makes almost twice that much, counting perks." The crowd was getting larger, and Deb stood up and put her bikini on. Then she picked up her towel and said, "Let's go, honey." I stood and pulled on my trunks, picked up our stuff, and we headed up the beach. The corn guy followed us, still talking. "Is she really a CEO? She is the CEO of the largest architectural business in Florida." He yelped. "Gotcha! Now my partners and me are having a studio designed at the biggest firm in Florida. I know the name." "Who does she work for?" "She works for Nelson Architectural." Holy crap, that's the right name. When we were safe in our suite, she pulled me around. "Can I please do it, Daddy? Can I, honey? Can I giggle? You can watch. Giggle." I grabbed her and held her at arm's length. Darn, she was gorgeous. "Oh, John, I am so hot for you. Please make love to me right now." "All right, but no matter how much you beg, no being an adult queen. No, I just want to be your queen. Only for you. I will do anything for you, but just for you. But if you take his offer, you get to screw lots of guys at the same time too." "Really?" "Yep. Oh, that sounds like such fun. You only have to sign 1 paper first." "Really?" "What's that?" "Our divorce agreement." "But I could never do that. Would you really kick me out? What do you think?" She looked at me. "Seriously. Yes, I really think you would. I think it would kill you to do it. But yes, I believe you would." I pulled her onto the bed. "Do you want me to go find the corn guy's body for you?" "Wait, I don't think that is what you said about me. But you tolerate me now." "No, I have never just tolerated you. I adore him. He is perfect." "Well, maybe just a little bit bigger. Would be nice." "Well, you could audition for the corn guy. He could get that handsome guy who was with him on the beach to try you out." Oh God, I saw him. I couldn't believe he was real. I have never seen one like that before, even in pictures of adult stars. "Do you want me to call Privates Clark, our attorney, and have him fax us the divorce papers?" "I will never sign that. Ever. You know I will never touch another man or let one touch me. I think you are just want a job as the adult. Star yourself." "Hey, don't be silly." He saw me nude with excitement. He didn't offer me a job. "Oh, baby, please don't feel bad. It's not your fault. You have a normal-sized and not a nice one." She was giggling behind her hand. I got up and walked out of the room. I knew she was teasing, but I felt there was a ring of truth in what she said. I needed to take a walk and clear my head. I was in shorts and a t-shirt, so I walked aimlessly down the paved walk. After I walked a while, I looked up, and I was in front of a resort I didn't recognize. I looked back behind me that looked familiar, and I hurried back that way. A walk entered from the left, and I saw a couple not far down the walk coming my way. The woman looked very much like Debbie. I sat on a bench along the wall beside the door to our suite. I was in a deep shadow, but I could see them. I heard Debbie say thank you for walking me to my suite. I'm sure John is here or will be soon. I didn't know that teasing him about his endowment would upset him so much. I don't think he is small, unless you compare him with the fellow who was with you earlier today. I just know John is perfect for me. I now realize the man is the corn guy. He said, "Hey, every man is small next to him." I hope you didn't tease him too hard about that. That is the worst thing you can tease most men about. It can ruin a man for you if you are not careful. He might be able to perform with other women, but with you, it may be like a cancer eating at his ego. It can be darn near impossible to cure. They had stopped on the other side of the wall for me. Another thing I have seen is that if the woman compares him to a large man, he may end up feeling inferior to large men and believe that a big man is the only man who can really satisfy you. That can be really devastating to a man. Listen, I appreciate your help, but I have to find John. Good night. Her heels clicked down the walk, and she came around the corner and saw me. She grinned and ran into my arms. I kissed her passionately and pulled her into our rooms. She looked carefully at me. "Honey, are you all right?" I started pulling my clothes off as fast as I could. I wasn't wearing much, so I was bare ahead of her. She looked worried, and tears started from each eye. She looked into my eyes again. "What's wrong? Why can't you get excitement? I'm not a huge guy like you need to please you now." Her sweet face scrunched all up and she cried harder. She was sobbing and trying to talk at the same time. I canned her down and told her that I had heard what the Cornell guy had said about how I would react. Her eyes were still wet when she asked again if I were all right. I will do the best I can possibly do, given my inferior equipment. We never saw the corn guy again. The remainder of our honeymoon or vacation was quiet and relaxing. We made love at least 3 times a day, and often more. We reluctantly left Grand Cayman, but then couldn't wait to get home. We both had missed Dolly very much, and had called her every day. The drive from the airport seemed to take forever. Dolly must have been watching for us from a window, because was out the door before we were out of the car. She was screaming, "Mommy, Daddy, I missed you." I stood watching the little girl hug and kiss her mother. They were both crying and sobbing. I was crying too, but didn't want to intrude on their moment of reunion. I was bent over getting some presents Deb and I had gotten for Deb's mother and uncle when I heard Dolly scream. "Where is Daddy? Where is my daddy? I want my daddy." Then I stepped up behind her and snatched her into my arms, hugging her as hard as I could without hurting her. Dolly wept as she hugged and kissed me. Debbie was hugging and kissing both of us. Deb's mom and uncle were standing watching us. We eventually calmed down and went into the house. We were told that Dolly had been a perfect little lady while we were gone, and that she was always welcome to stay with them as long as she wanted. Dolly said she had a very good time with them, but for us not to leave her again for a long time. Debbie and I promised that it would be quite a while before we did that again. Monday, we were back at work. About a month prior to our vacation, Deb had posted notices that we had an opening for a graduate engineer to check job sites, solve problems, and ensure compliance with our plans. Much travel would be required. She had received over 100 applications with resumes and references. Deb had organized a committee and drafted guidelines and criteria for grading the applicants. Deb and the senior engineers would review the top 20 people. All they were provided on each applicant was their information. They were only identified by a randomly picked number. There were no names, sexes, marital status, ages, pictures, or any other irrelevant information. We acknowledged that many of those invisible items have a large bearing on how they would perform in the job. For instance, a very attractive and very young woman would be a riskier candidate for this traveling job. We were down to the top 20 people. There were 4 of the selection committee looking over the files on these top 20. These files were complete with all available information including name, age, love, picture, etc. Each of the committee took 5 files and were to rate the 5, picking the top 2. That would get us down to 10. After that, I would review all 10 of these and rate the top 4. Each of the others would do the same. We would combine the results, averaging the grades, and see what we had then. We felt that all this would give us a workable number to interview. I would decide ties or other problems, and I had the final decision. It was an unspoken fact that Debbie had tremendous influence on my decisions. I trusted her instincts in most cases. It came down to 2 candidates. The top person was a very attractive young woman with a master's degree in engineering. She was engaged to be married and was currently employed as an assistant professor at Georgia Tech. She stated that she had no problem with the travel requirements. The number 2 candidate was tall, well-built young man named Jamal Washington. He had high academic grades and excellent recommendations from his previous employers. He had worked with very good smaller companies, doing virtually the same job. He was handsome, articulate, personable, and very self-confident. He enjoyed the travel and was unattached. His resume was excellently written. It was a very tough call. I told Deb she could make the decision. Debbie cheated. She hired both of them. The girl, Betty Johnson, was hired as the assistant to the head of our engineering department, Marty Martin, who was a wonderful man who was well past retirement age. Deb wanted her as his future replacement. Betty was very happy with that. She hired Jamal Washington for the advertised position. He worked out very well for us. I often saw him, but I saw and worked with Betty on a regular basis. More important was that Marty found Betty to be very pleasant and super capable as a practicing engineer and a whiz with computers and CAD programs. She even showed me several new techniques that I hadn't seen before. She installed some programs that made some existing programs much easier to use. The kid knew her crap. Both Deb and I liked her a lot, and had Betty and her fiancé over for BBQs and pool parties. After we were home from our honeymoon for almost 2 months, Debbie took Dolly and I and sat us at the kitchen table. She sat between us and held our hands. She looked at me. "John, I told you I needed to see the doctor for a routine checkup this afternoon. I really had a problem I needed to discuss with her. I was getting very scared by then. Cancer, some disease. I guess my grip hurt her hand." She looked at me. "Are you okay?" "No, you are scaring me to death." Debbie laughed. "No, sweeties, nothing like that. I just want to tell the 2 of you that we are going to have a new family member in a few months." Dolly squealed. "Oh, goody! We are going to get a puppy." Debbie smiled. "No, honey, not that good. You are going to have a little sister or brother." I sat stunned. I must have had a huge smile on my face. Deb giggled. "I hope that grin means you are happier than Dolly is." I jumped up, ran around Deb, and picked up Dolly. I yelled. "Mom was going to have a baby. Mama's going to have a baby. Hooray! Mama's going to have a baby." As I danced around holding Dolly, Dolly joined in, helping me be happy, and realizing her mama was pregnant. She screamed as loud as I did. Deb sat there and laughed with us. Dolly and I moved to Debbie. Dolly climbed into her lap and kissed her. Then I kissed her. My eyes were filled with years, and I stepped away and looked out the window, seeing nothing, thinking of what this meant to me. I was going to be a father. This child would be part of me and would carry my blood to pass along for many generations. I guess every father has these feelings, along with the knowledge that the act of childbirth puts the life of the woman he loves at risk. This new life is my responsibility. In addition to the 2 females, I am already responsible for nurturing and protecting. I turned and moved Dolly, telling her I need very badly to hug and kiss her mother. Deb flowed into my arms and we kissed for a long time. It was not a romantic kiss, but one of total love and adoration. I whispered, "I love you, my wife. Thank you for this precious gift, John. I love you too. Thank you to my husband. This will be our child. A melding of the 2 us into one being. I have prayed for this. My dearest lover and best friend." Dolly looked at Debbie. "Mommy, I am happy. I am going to have a brother or sister. But next time can you have a puppy?" I placed my hand on Debbie's belly. It was still perfectly flat. She giggled. No, dear, I am not showing yet. I am over 2 months along. I have a few months before I shall. Will you go to birthing classes with me? Of course. I will gladly go anywhere with you, my love. I really don't need to go, but I think it would be helpful for you to learn about the process and what to expect. I totally agree. I am very ignorant about exactly goes on. Naturally, I have a rough idea, but I need to learn more. We have what? Another 7 months? Yeah, that's about right. I looked at the little girl standing in front of me with, where was she going to put the baby? I am much bigger than Jeff, Dolly's real father. Could my little wife carry a bigger baby safely? What about twins? Triplets? Wow, so shocked, much to think about. Why didn't I think about this before I got her pregnant and put her in jeopardy? What's wrong? Honey? You look very worried about something. I pulled her to me and held her tight. I saw that Dolly wasn't paying any attention to us, so I told Debbie about my fears. She said, Sweetie, the good Lord foresaw that when He designed the female body, except in rare cases, a woman's body adjusts to handle a larger infant in several ways. And where that doesn't happen, modern medicine takes care of that. That is why I go through what they call prenatal care. My doctor will monitor the size of our baby and examine me and make sure my birth canal is big enough to handle the baby. If it isn't big enough, there are several options. They can induce labor so the baby comes earlier before it gets too big. Or they can take the baby by cesarean section. That is where they surgically remove the baby through the tummy. It is done hundreds of times a day with no problems. Not on my love. It isn't. I am terrified, Dolly said. What's wrong, Mommy? Why is Daddy crying? Oh, honey, everything is fine. Daddy is being silly because he doesn't know how babies come from Mommy's tummy. He's afraid it will hurt me. That is silly, Daddy. Mommy told me all about it. It hurts some. But mommies don't mind it because they love their babies. Deb grinned and nodded as if to say, See? Nothing to worry about. Even Dolly knows that Daddy loves us very much, sweetheart. He tries to not let anything hurt us at all, even if it is a good hurt. Dolly looked at me, then at Debbie. He is a very good daddy, isn't he? Yes, dear. He sure is. We all hugged a couple months past, and I could see a slight curve to Debbie's belly. I think she was pleased about that. She insisted that this pregnancy was 100% better than the one with Dolly. Then she went through it alone and was scared to death. This time, she had a wonderful husband to take care of her every need. She was even happier than normal. If she had the expected morning sickness, I never knew it. There was even a glow about her that everyone remarked about. She had trouble getting her work done because everyone in the building was so solicitous of her. No one would let her lift a thing or open a door. They all ran to assist her with anything she did. Everyone stopped her to ask her how she was feeling. She confessed to me that as irritating as it was, she realized that it was because people genuinely cared about her. She said it was totally different from last time when people avoided her because she was an unwed mother-to-be. Debbie told me that she even bought a cheap ring to wear to avoid the looks. Then she threw it away because she thought it was a lie. She felt she had done nothing wrong, and that she was going to have the baby who had done nothing wrong either. And to heck with what ignorant people thought, if possible. She seemed to enjoy physical contact with me more than ever. She couldn't be hugged or kissed enough. I kind of thought it was cool too. No matter where we were or what we were doing. She wanted to be touching me. I loved it. Debbie was 7 months along and was obviously pregnant. When we decided we would leave work a little early and stop by the farmer's market for some fresh vegetables for a cookout for the company that weekend, she said she was going across the street to the bank to get some cash to use at the market because they only took cash. Dolly and I were to pick her at the bank. I was putting Dolly in her car seat when I heard the shots from across the street. I instinctively drew my pistol as I shut the door and looked across the street. I saw Debbie standing on the curb, calmly exchanging shots with 3 men who were trying to get in a car. I saw 2 of the men go down when the car jumped toward Debbie. I snapped off 4 quick shots, and the driver disappeared. Then I couldn't see Debbie. The car slowed and hit the curb, then hit a tree. I ran across the street and saw Debbie lying in the grass beside the car. She was struggling to try and get up. I checked her out and helped her up. She said she was fine, and that she had tripped getting out of the way of the car. There was still screaming coming from the bank, so I headed that way. There were more shots from the bank. I stopped and looked around the corner and through the glass doors. One was shattered glass covering the sidewalk. A bank guard was on his stomach in a pool of blood, but still holding his gun, pointing at a man holding a woman in front of him and pointing his gun at the guard. I wished I had a little easier. Johnson .22 revolver instead of the butt, I didn't. So I stepped to where I had a clear shot and put a shot in the robber's head. He dropped his gun and fell to the floor. I ran to see if the woman was all right. Someone screamed, "There is another crook behind you." I turned and dropped to the floor. I heard 2 quick shots from behind me, and a man rose from behind a desk holding a gun. There were 2 more shots, and he staggered. I put 2 more shots in his chest, dropping him. Debbie pulled me around and asked if I were all right. I asked her the same thing. She said, "Heck no. I ruined a new pair of pantyhose and a good purse." I checked and found nothing else wrong with either of us. Then the police arrived, and Debbie and I surrendered our weapons. The bank manager ran over and told the police that we had saved many lives with our actions. 6 customers have been shot. Only 1 died. 5 of the robbers were killed. The police officer in charge permitted Debbie and I to leave the scene and take care of Dolly. The little tot was quite upset by all the noise and excitement, and by our absence. I got permission to send Debbie and Dolly back in our building to wait while things were sorted out. I was questioned extensively then, was able to stay with Dolly while Debbie was questioned in our own offices. "Debbie, remember that our security cameras should have recorded most of what went on across the street." As it turned out, the pictures showed the whole scene very clearly from start to finish, along with the exterior and interior recordings from the bank. The detectives got excellent coverage of everything that occurred. I finally was permitted to take my family home, where we tried to wind down. I tried to be calm when I chastised my sweet wife for getting in a gunfight with the robbers. I told her she had put her and our unborn baby at risk. Unfortunately, the TV came on with a breaking story about the heroic husband and wife team that had saved many lives and stopped the bank robbery. Debbie was giggling about how funny we looked, falling all over ourselves, trying to avoid the car and not getting shot. Her giggles soon dissolved into tears with the realization of how close things really were. I tried to comfort her, but we ended crying together and comforting each other while we watched the story unfold on a national news program. I switched to several different channels, and we were surprised to find all the stations were covering the bank robbery. We saw a shot of a number of TV vans in front of our condo. The phone started ringing. It was a reporter from Fox News wanting an interview. I advised him that we had been told by the police that until the preliminary investigation was complete, we were not to grant interviews. Our phone was soon busy as our friends started calling to congratulate us on what we did. Later the next morning, a group of people from the sheriff's department, led by the sheriff himself, came by the house and showed us the combined views from all the security cameras involved. There was very clear shots of Debbie stepping out of the street as the robbers exited from the bank. You could see Debbie's right hand dive into her purse. Flames shot from the purse instantly. She dropped 2 of the robbers. The third was knocked off of his feet. All 3 of the robbers were shooting at Debbie, and branches and leaves were falling around her as they were clipped off the tree above her head by bullets. The other crooks tried to exit the bank, but Debbie's next shots wounded one, and they ran back in the back. I appeared about then, with gun in hand. The getaway car entered the scene. I looked very calm as I pumped shots into the driver, who later died. Debbie was calmly reloading. The pistol remained in her hand as firing broke out again from the bank. Interior film from inside bank confirmed my statement about the hostage situation. Another bank robber was found behind a desk, badly wounded. He was expected to recover. We were asked if we would appear at a news conference at the sheriff's office that afternoon. They said all the news agencies would be represented there. After that, we could grant interviews if we wanted to. The sheriff himself was really incredulous about Debbie. He couldn't believe that a really gorgeous, young, tiny, innocent-looking pregnant mother could stand and exchange shots with a gang of bank robbers and win. I assured the sheriff that my lovely wife was the most amazing woman I had ever met. I said, "If you want something done and done right, call on my wife. She will always win." The big grin never left his face. He said, "As a general rule, I do not approve of private citizens getting involved in armed combat. It is very dangerous to all concerned. This little lady did everything exactly right. As best we can determine, she didn't miss with a single shot, and that is with bullets whizzing past her ears. Not many highly trained deputies could do that. I can't believe this little girl fired 7 shots, reloaded, and fired 7 more shots, and got 14 solid hits. He looked at me. You did almost that good yourself. You didn't fire as much, but you didn't miss either. What are you to do? Practice all the time? No. We each fire once a month, 24 rounds each. Wow, that's not much. No, Deb is a natural. Don't bet against her at darts or any other hand-eye coordination game. You say she is a mother? She can't be old enough. Actually, she'll be old enough to drink pretty soon. The next few months were difficult for us. We were in great demand on talk shows and news shows. Everyone and his brother wanted Debbie to endorse things from hair products to diapers. I had to get nasty and restrict her activities as we neared her due date. Deb had trouble turning down people who wanted her to appear on shows, and I was the mean and nasty guy who wouldn't let her do it. I wouldn't let her schedule anything for a week before and for 3 weeks after her due date. I went so far as to cut off her communications with everyone but family. I wouldn't even permit her to answer a phone. Close friends and family would call on my cell phone, and I would put her on. She still insisted on going to the office right up to the time she went into labor. She still carried out her daily schedule, which I had her modify, so that the different department heads came to see her in her office. Jamal Washington was always her first appointment in the morning. He always wanted to get his instructions directly from her. After our baby boy was born, Debbie and I took several weeks off. I wanted to be very involved in my son's care from the very start. I bathed him, changed him, burped him, and held him a lot. When we went back to work, we had his portable crib in Deb's office so she could take care of him. He was an easy baby to care for. He seldom cried and loved everyone. He would smile and laugh at anyone who paid attention to him. I would often look through the door to Deb's office and see her nursing Johnny. Yes, he is John Jr., while she worked. One morning, I was late getting Dolly settled in at the daycare and entered Deb's office on the way to my office. She was feeding Johnny in the small towel she used to cover the baby. She was exposed while feeding the baby while she talked on the phone. Jamal Washington sat not 3 feet away, staring at her. I stopped, covered her jug, and walked on. I glanced back and saw Washington smiling. That irritated me. The next week, she told me she was going to make her office visits and would be back soon. She said, "If Johnny gets hungry, call me." I said, "Why don't you continue letting them visit you? It's much easier on you." She looked at me, then smiled, and said she would do that tomorrow, and that she liked to see for herself how things looked in each office. I asked who she saw first. She said, "I always see Jamal first before he leaves on his rounds." I looked at her quizzically. "Why doesn't he see his department head, Marty or Betty?" She looked at me. "I don't know. That is how we have always done it since he got here. I don't like that. He should be getting his orders from his boss, not you. That is how it worked, while you were busy with having Johnny." She glanced at me. "What difference does it make? Is he finished with his probation period?" I turned away and looked at some notes on my desk. She said nothing. I looked back at her and raised my eyebrows. "I'll take care of it." "Good. It's tidier if he is in the proper chain of command. Then people won't wonder why he is special." She stared at me. "Including you?" "Yeah. John, are you serious?" "Well, he is a big, handsome stud, like the guy who fascinated you so much down in the Caymans." She stared at me. I smiled and winked at her. She grinned and flipped me a finger. Several months later, we had our annual early summer company beach party. I owned several acres of beachfront property about 12 miles north of Daytona Beach. It was fenced and gated with a lime rock road and parking area. We had several canopies we set up for shade. We had a gasoline-powered generator that kept a refrigerator cool and provided lights and music later. The generator was a good distance away on a buried cable to the canopies. This was an adult-only party, so our children got to spend the night at grandmother's house. We had a few people wander in from up and down the beach. Deb circulated and spent time with various groups to make things easy. All the food was pre-cooked and only had to be warmed up a bit. I had rented 2 porta-potties. Toward evening, I realized that every time I saw Deb, Jamal was with her, were close by. They were never alone together. She seemed to be avoiding me. I was getting more and more irritated. Betty Johnson helped me a lot with the food. Her boyfriend was out of town, and she hadn't wanted to come, but the people in her department talked her into it. Betty was not unaware that I was getting upset. I told Betty that I thought I would take a walk up the beach. By that time, the crowd was thinning out. I needed to think about Debbie. She seemed infatuated with Jamal. I knew I would have no life worth thinking about if she left me. Would she take the kids with her? Should I just leave and let her move him in? I couldn't do that. What would it do to Dolly? What was wrong with me that I couldn't keep a wife? I came upon a driftwood lock. I sat in the sand and leaned back against it. I stared at the little waves sliding up onto the sand. They moved inexorably toward my feet. Finally, I realized my feet were getting wet. I had been thinking and crying. I heard people approaching me and saw two people searching the beach with a flashlight. The light hit me. They walked up to me and shined a light in my face. I couldn't see who it was, but I knew the voice that said, "Are you going to just sit there until the water covers you?" It was Debbie. I didn't look at her. That would seem to be one solution that is not acceptable. I will not let that happen. I need my husband. We need to talk. Come back with me, and we will wrap everything up and go home. Betty and Jamal will help us. I looked around and saw Betty standing about 20 feet away watching us, Debbie said. Betty told me she saw you walk up this way, and that you were upset about Jamal and I. I thought you knew me better than that. I love only you, my sweet husband. I am very sorry if you thought there was something between Jamal and I. That can never happen. You were stuck with me forever. I have been trying to help him through a bad time. He is in love, and his heart broken, because his love loves someone else. Jamal and I are good friends, nothing more. There is no sexual attraction between us. I glanced at her that I will never believe unless he is not straight. How did you figure that out? Because every male has a sexual attraction to you, unless he is not straight. Who is he in love with? You? Me? I have never given any sign. I am at all attracted to him. I think that he was aware that you always keep an eye on him. I know he misread that interest. You thought he was interested in me and wanted to scare him away from me. Heck, girl, you spend every minute you can with him. What do you expect me to think? I am still not convinced. You don't at least lust after him. Ask Betty what everyone thinks. Betty is John, right? I have wondered myself, and I have heard a lot of speculation about it. The girls are all afraid of what it would do to John if it were true, especially after what he went through with Sally. Debbie's hands flew to her face. She sobbed. No, oh no, what have I done to my poor husband? I thought he was just teasing me. I didn't know he really thought I cared for Jamal. I was just trying to make Jamal feel better about John. I can understand how he feels because I love John with every fiber in my body and soul. He came to my office every morning so he could see John. He was always near me because that is where John is. He thinks John is the sexiest man he has ever seen. I agree. I looked at Betty and Debbie. Well, he is kind of cute, you know. They looked at each other and laughed. Betty giggled and said she would fix me up with him. Debbie said, "No way. John only gets fixed up with me. Besides, I know Jamal saw John when John was playing with me at the last pool party, and my husband was a little excited." Jamal was very impressed. I looked at the two laughing girls. Ladies, I do not care if Mr. Jamal is repressed, impressed, or depressed. I am in no manner or form available. I happen to belong to the sexiest female alive. I made some vows and promises to her into my God when we were married. To the best of my knowledge, those vows are still in effect, and I will never break them. Debbie stared at me for a second and said, "Betty, isn't that the sweetest thing you have ever heard? The best part is that he is the world's worst fibber. When we go shopping together, I always try on one dress that I know looks horrid on me. I always ask him if it looks good. He will stall and evade giving an answer. If I pin him down, he will say that the color doesn't do me justice or something. If I say I like it, he will finally say no. I don't like the way it looks on you. John simply cannot look me in the eyes and tell me even a little white lie. I can't even think of fibbing to him. I can tease him, but not really lie to him. I looked at Debbie. Honey, do you see Jamal as any kind of problem at all? No, not really. He could be a small irritant to you, but overall he is not a problem. I will have him get his information from Marty or Betty, and it should work just fine. His work is excellent in all respects. His reports are complete and on time. There has been no complaints about him, and he solves any problems quickly. Do I need to keep an eye on the two of you? No, not at all. She grinned. Just keep an eye on me. I love that. Okay. Tell him our reasoning about putting him back in the chain of command, and tell him it has a positive reflection on him. Just tell him he is proof that he has completed his probation and that he needs no further assistance from you to do his job correctly. So he will be integrated with the other inspecting engineers and receive an appropriate increase in his pay. Debbie smiled gently. No wonder I love you so shocked much. That is a very simple but thoughtful solution, leaving everyone feeling good. I laughed. If you are feeling good, will you make me feel good after we get our kids to bed tonight? Honey, you can count on that.